To better provide the overview and capabilities of Webiny Page Builder, we're going to use Webiny.com as an example page. So this whole page has been built with the page builder, and you can see the page is fully interactive. We got multiple elements that user can click on and interact with, and so on. So, and it's a pretty big page, right? But it's not just this page that was built with the page builder. All of the pages on Webiny.com, let's say on our marketing site, have been built with the page builder. We're going to have a quick look now how that looks like inside the admin dashboard. All right, so I'm in the admin dashboard, and here I'm going to go to the main menu, page builder, pages. So we got a couple of entries here. We also have entries that are nested in folders. If we also, for example, let's go find our homepage. Here it is. If we click on it, we immediately get a preview, and not just the preview, we can also interact with the preview. Similar to entries in the headless CMS, we have a revision system that works in the identical way. We've got drafts, published, locked. We can always create new ones, unpublish, publish, and so on. We can also switch the revision here so we see how an older version looked like, and got a few other options. Let's cover some basic concepts with regards to the page builder. We have mainly pages, templates, and blocks. Those are the main building blocks of pages. Let's demonstrate those in practice. First, when I click a new page, I have a list of possible templates I can use. These are very simple, just for illustration purposes. Or I can always start a page with a blank template. But let's start with this test template. So I can click Use Template. This essentially puts me into the page editor, but pre-fills my page with this particular template. Okay. Now, let's add a block. So a page is built as a set of blocks. So here you can see this is one block. Here is another block. So let's add another block. We'll add an empty block for now. So at the bottom we have a block, and inside that block we have a grid, and inside the grid we have a cell. Inside that cell we have the ability to add elements. Now, because I'm in a template, my page is locked. When you're using a page as a template, the system by default constrains you so that you can only build a page within that template, so that any modifications made to the template itself are inherited as part of your page. And of course, when you are building page of a template, you can make certain blocks editable and so on. But in this case, I just want to break that inheritance between a page and a template so I can add more elements to my page. So I'll unlink the template. And there we go. Now let's repeat the exercise. And now inside a cell, I can add elements such as headings, paragraphs, images, icons, buttons, and so on. So I can edit this. This is basically the structure. So you've got an outer template, and inside that you've got blocks, and inside blocks you have elements that can be dropped into, sometimes into a grid in a cell, or they can in certain cases live outside a grid or a cell, but they do need to belong to a block nonetheless. When we select specific elements, if we now get here to the style property, you will see that the options in the style bar change depending on the element. So let's say, hey, I want a grid that's 2 by 2, and I want to have 2 rows, and let's say I want to make 25 pixels as a gap between them. So you see now I immediately can start building a more complex layout. The other thing that's quite important with regards to the page builder is that you are automatically building mobile responsive pages. So if we, for example, navigate here to a mobile tab, you see that my grid now changed in a way that the rows are the cells are one after the other. I can also change that behavior specifically for mobile or specifically for any of these breakpoints. So whenever you select an element, and in the style property, if you have this icon, that means that the change you're gonna make to that element is gonna be constrained only for that specific device. Let's go back here. When it comes to elements, there's simple elements like these, but there's also more complex elements, like you can do embeds like YouTube or similar. There's elements like carousel tabs, accordions, there's code editors, and many, many more. Now, usually when we want to set up Webiny and use it as a page builder, we always instruct people as a specific best practice to build a set of blocks. So here you see that I've got block categories on my left side, and then I've got a couple of ready-made blocks inside each of these categories. So let's say I want to use this block, I just click on it and it gets added to my page. And that block, similar to a template, is linked to the block source. If I edit the block source, all the pages that use this block will inherit those changes. However, if I want to edit this block, I need to unlink it. And through that process, I will break that inheritance, but it's going to give me the ability to now edit my block. The point of blocks is that we want to make it easy for people to build a page with pre-made components, and the fact that reusing components is a specific best practice. Besides the built-in set of elements, you can always introduce your own custom elements. So let's add an empty block here. Here, for the purpose of Webiny.com, we created a couple of custom element groups through a plugin, and inside those element groups, we've added a lot of custom plugins. Those plugins don't have a nice icon like these ones, but you can control that. We just didn't invest time into that. So for example, let's say I want to insert the pricing table. It's a ready-made component here. Let's add another block, and for example, let's just do one thing on this block. Let's make the width of this grid 100%. Okay, and into this block, we're gonna add a component. Let's say trading view. Okay, let's make this height a bit bigger. Okay, and let's do it like so. Okay, so for example, here we've got a component that shows the specific stock ticker. So here we got Apple, and you can see this component is fully interactive. But besides just the component being interactive, you can, as you're building custom components, you can expose certain configuration elements. For example, this element exposes the trading symbol. Let's say we want to change the trading symbol. You can see it immediately reloads. So you can see you can create elements that pull data from dynamic sources, that embed third-party JavaScript libraries, and that they are fully interactive and configurable through this interface. How you go about creating those components, in essence, it's 90% React code, and there's a very thin plugin wrapper that goes around the component to expose it inside the page builder. We'll cover that in one of the tutorials. But essentially, anything you can build in React, you can expose as a page builder component, no matter if it's doing API calls, no matter if it works with authentication, no matter if it requires configuration elements or whatnot. All of that can work with the page builder, making page builder quite a powerful tool. All right, let's now have a look at a few other options. So first of all, here you've got a navigator which tells you what you have in specific blocks and what blocks you have on the page. You can also name these. So if, let's say, if I click on a block here, you can see that the block gets a name exposed, making it quite easy to then identify specific blocks. And you can see here you can hierarchically navigate, and if you click on it, it gets selected there. You can also drag and drop blocks to change their order. So let's say we want to move this one up. You can do that there. Additionally, if you select a specific element, you will see the path to that element just down there. So let's say I want to select the parent grid. You can just click on it here, and immediately I get the grid selected. Let's look at a few other options here in the toolbar. Here we got the page name. You can just type in and edit it. We also have a version and a draft. If a page has multiple revisions, we can switch them here and immediately see the other version of that page in the editor. Then we have the settings tab. Settings tab exposes a couple of generic settings like title, path, and tags, and a layout. So layout is inherited from a theme. So every Webiny page has a theme, and a theme controls things like fonts, so typography in general, CSS, as well as what are sets of these layouts that you can use. Usually you would embed in a layout headings, footers, navigation, and so on. And your theme then exposes which layout you want to use. The layout itself is not visible here unless you preview a page. We're going to get to that in a second. Then you also have the SEO and social media options. The cool thing with Webiny, again, you can add another or a dozen other setting groups here for your own custom purposes if needed. Now let's get to the preview bit. So as you're building a page, you want to see how that page looks like or will look like on your page, on your website, without actually publishing it. So it's only accessible to people with the link. So if we click the preview, now when you do the preview, the pages are rendered on demand, meaning that, well, depending on if you're doing API calls on your custom elements or not, those elements will load with potentially some delay. But for example, here we see how the page looks like. If you go back to the editor and say, hey, I don't want the static page, I want to use the layout with the main navigation. Let's save that. If you go back to our preview and just reload it, let's see what happens. Now we have the main navigation. So you see how a theme, but this also affected the fonts because this other layout uses different sets of fonts and so on. We also have a footer now. Now, when you press the publish button, what this does is it sends this page to a rendering engine. Basically, it's a pipeline that adds a page to the queue, and then once the page gets in front of the queue, it gets rendered, all happening in the background. That rendering process takes a snapshot of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all of the API calls are cached, everything, and creates a nice package. That package then gets stored onto an S3 bucket. And whenever somebody visits that page, the request hits the CloudFront, and the CloudFront uses that S3 as the origin to deliver that page, meaning that this delivery mechanism is extremely cost efficient, extremely reliable, and super scalable. Essentially, your website can't go down if you are delivering pages through this type of a pipeline. Also, it's super fast because we're delivering static snapshots at the end of the day. Let's now have a look at how we actually created the Webiny homepage. So if we go back under the homepage, let's just edit our homepage. So here you can see we've got some blocks, elements like image, headings, and so on. Then we've got some custom components. So for example, this is a custom React component that we created, and basically our marketing team, all they need to do is just find that element in the list and just drag it and drop it into the page. So I think this is the one, and let's drag it and drop it here so you can see. There you go. So essentially, the point is to make it easy for the non-technical users, usually the marketing team, to create these pages. It's easy for them to use, like say, those basic components such as text or image. Those more advanced, usually developers create as encapsulated React components, which are then exposed in the drawer here, so they can just drag it and drop it into the page. And then in certain cases, for example, let's find one. These are all custom-made blocks. But for example, this is a pre-made block that comes from the block list. Because we reused this element on a couple of pages, we extracted it as a standalone block and then inserted it into the page. So the combination of pre-made blocks and some ready-made elements makes it a pretty good experience for the non-technical users to build these interactive pages in Webiny. So here you can see basically how our homepage looks like. Now let's have a look at that block setup for a bit. So if we go to the main menu, blocks, first of all, if we go to block categories, we've got a couple of block categories. Each block category has a name, an icon, and description, and a slug. And then if we go under the blocks, we can see a specific block here. The point is that you categorize your blocks just so it's easier to find them. But then the point of the blocks is, so if we added the block, is the same editor as before. However, when you are creating a block, what you can do is, so let's say I'll select this element, and under the element, I'll expose this as a variable, right? So you can see this is now marked as a variable. What that allows us to do is, so this is content left image copy. So what that allows us to do, if you go to pages and use that page that we played with before, let's add that block to the bottom. So here we have that block. I can't edit it because I need to unlink it, otherwise I would break the inheritance tree there. However, we can still keep the inheritance intact, but we still can at the same time allow the user to edit the content of the block. So this is by exposing those variables that I showed here. The users can make changes to this without us actually allowing the user to change, let's say, the font size, the colors of the fonts, and things, paddings, margins, how the mobile responsive works, and all of that. So we remove all of that complexity. We ensure that there's a specific pattern to how the block looks like that the user can't change, but they can change the content of it. And let's say we edit this block then. So I'm going to click Edit Block here. It's going to open another window for us. And now let's say in this block that we added a, I don't know, let's say we're going to add a button here. And let's play around with that button a bit. Let's add some margins. Let's move it to left, and let's go click here, let's expose the variables, button label, button URL, cool. And let's save those changes. So we added this button to our block. So if we go back to our page, which was still in edit mode, we can refresh the block. And now we see the new block that we just, well, edited. It's automatically showing the changes here. And we can immediately interact with the other elements, while again we kept that inheritance. At the same time, we're able to change the content, right? So the point of blocks is to build this library, expose the variables that you want your users to have, and then it's super easy for them to have a massive set of pre-made components and blocks that they just insert in their pages and adopt to the content that they are producing at the moment. And if you notice, let's say this block has, I don't know, a misalignment somewhere or the wrong padding, you just edit it in the blocks editor and all of the pages will automatically pick up the new block for you. So those are blocks. But then if you go into templates, the point of a template is, so let's edit the template. The point of a template is that you build a whole page with a set of blocks, and the point is that you want to expose a lot of variables in those blocks and so on. So when a user goes and uses that template to create a new page, they would just click on a block and populate the variables and essentially have a standardized set of pages that use the same template, but they are different in their content. And let's say you need to then add an additional change to that template. You would just edit the template here, save it, and all of the pages that use that template will pick up those changes automatically. So you see, you got that trio of a block, template, and a page that work together. Of course, you don't need to use templates, you don't need to use blocks, but it's a much better user experience if you do. Let's have a look at what else we can show you here. Essentially, similarly like in the headless CMS, this instance here doesn't have a web enterprise license active, but you can still use folder level permissions to control which of your content editors can access and edit and manage specific pages. You also have the ability to export pages, which is going to give you a zip bundle, which you can then move between different Webiny instances. So here we can select a specific block category and then export blocks from that category, or export all blocks. This allows us, well, we can export and import pages, but we can also export and import blocks, which is a really handy way when you need to reuse blocks between, again, different Webiny instances. And we're going to cover that in our next video, where we're going to import specific set of blocks and build our first page together. All right, so this was a quick overview of the Webiny Page Builder. So I hope I was able to demonstrate some of the cool capabilities. And again, our whole homepage was built with Webiny Page Builder, as well as all the Webiny applications are multi-tenanted. So you can have multiple Webiny projects. Each of them will have their own page builder, their own pages, their own sets of blocks, and all running on the same code base. So if you build specific React components that you expose inside the page builder, you can control which of your tenants will see those. You can say, hey, this component is visible by all tenants, or this component is only visible by specific tenants. So you get all of that power on top of the page builder features that I've demonstrated. Also, when we talk about theming, so a page builder has a theme that's defined in the code. There's an add-on module that we ship for our enterprise users called the theme manager. With the theme manager, as you're creating tenants, you can also then have multiple themes in your system, and you can select on each tenant which themes that tenant can use. So they can every tenant can say I can have 20 themes as part of my Webiny instance, and then I can expose 5 themes to tenant 1, 15 themes to tenant 2, and when those tenants log in their settings dashboard, they can choose which of the themes they want to use out of that pre-made selection that we defined through the theme manager. So there's quite a lot of possibilities here, specifically when you're building a multi-tenanted SaaS application and similar. All right, cool. Hope you enjoyed this overview. We're going to continue with our first exercise in the next video.